Y'all really thought you were gonna push LA around? This is where Tonga women, like Toy Perina, planned rebellions in 1785 to push the colonizers and their missions off her land. This is where the first Chinatown built by Chinese Americans is. 18 Chinese men and boys were lynched here in 1871, and they still chose to rebuild. This is home to the LA garment strikes. In the 1930s, thousands of garment workers, mostly Latinas, walked out of shops in downtown LA for 26 days. They got a 40-hour work week and fair pay. This is where the Zoot Suit Rebellion was. White sailors and soldiers attacked Chicano youth. In 1943, they ripped their Zoot Suits right off their backs. But you better believe they fought back. And blacks and Filipinos were right there swinging with them. This is where the Watts Rebellion raged for 6 days. Since police want to harass black folk, in 1965, we caused $40 million in damage to the neighborhood and built Eugenia Village, Martin Luther King Jr. Hospital, Charles Drew University, all in its ashes. They sent down 14,000 National Guard troops for that. This ain't our first rodeo. This is LA, home to one of the Black Panther Party's most active chapters. They created the first SWAT team in America to raid their office. They killed chapter leaders at UCLA. They didn't stop organizing. Many of them went underground. This is where the East LA walkouts happened. In 1968, thousands of students walked out of class for Chicano representation and education. Black studies started at San Francisco State in 68, but Chicano studies started at Cal State LA in 69. This is LA, where the American Indian Movement, AIM, occupied the Bureau of Indian Affairs in downtown. 1972, they demanded sovereignty and forced treaties, their land back. Baby, this is LA, when the feds cut funding to AIDS programs. The queer community not only stepped in to take care of each other, they took direct action. Act Up, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, stormed the Federal Drug Administration's LA office. Cause why is the FDA gonna keep delaying approvals for AIDS drugs while all these people out here dying? They shut down Wilshire Boulevard to protest healthcare inaccessibility. They held die-ins and mass protests at Catholic churches, the CDC, and pharmaceutical giants. I mean, this is really LA. We've always been too much for the world. We have never backed out of a fight. The LA riots didn't happen for our health. It happened for our freedom. It's true we might not always get along, but we know how to protect one another. This is LA.
You are a fucking idiot if you think that you can find liberation for yourself by selling other marginalized people down the river. We got a black man with a Burkinabe flag. We got Mexicans riding up on bikes flying their flag. And we got a woman standing there wearing a Palestinian kufiya, and they're all facing off against the same fucking police force. You cannot sell out Mexicans and La Raza because some Hispanic citizens voted for a fucking fascist. You cannot sell out Palestinians because you think turning a blind eye to their genocide is a way to protect your own fucking rights. Especially when you take into account that the people who are committing the genocide in Palestine are the same people who are training ICE. The same people who are training the police force who kneeled on George Floyd's neck. We are all fighting the same fight. We are fighting against the ability for white supremacists and fascists to come into our neighborhoods and take members of our families without any kind of just cause. Oppressive regimes do not switch tactics, they simply switch target. We are currently witnessing is the imperial boomerang. By greenlighting that shit in Palestine, we are giving the government the okay to do that shit right here in our country. It is not a coincidence that the same people funding the genocide in Palestine are the same people running on tough immigration policy, funding ICE, funding the police, and funding cop cities. It is not a fucking coincidence that the people standing up to the fascists are wearing kufiyas. From Mexico to Gaza, illegal border walls have got to go. From Boyle Heights to Burkina Faso, we need to stand unified against white supremacy or they will walk all over us.
Young generation of whites, blacks, browns, whatever else there is, you're living at a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time when there's got to be a change. People in power have misused it, and now there has to be a change, and a better world has to be built, and the only way it's going to be built is with extreme methods. And I, for one, will join in with anyone, don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this.
Greetings, and good afternoon, good evening, Woodwork and Black Liberation Media audience. My name is Tandasizwe Shimaringa, and I was scheduled to do a show on this madness surrounding Harriet Tubman today, but as most of you all know, all hell done broke loose in Los Angeles, and I said, I got to speak to this. I got to do something. So I have asked two of my brothers and comrades to come on the show with me today to talk about some of the issues surrounding what we have been seeing in Los Angeles. But I wanted to I wanted to start the discussion with these two videos talking about who we are here in LA, how we handle business in LA, and the need for us to protect one another, but also talking about the need for us to stand together against common enemies, against a common enemy. Now, some of what we're going to be discussing today, I am not in agreement with, but because it resonates with so many of my people, I have to give voice to it, whether I agree with it or not. So before I start running my mouth and blabbering, let me bring up my guests for the day. Brother Ron Gochez is an organizer with Union del Barrio, and he can talk more about what that organization does. But I asked him on specifically today to give us a blow by blow with what's happening on the streets of Los Angeles in terms of these protests. I have also asked my brother comrade Billion GodSun from the Africa Town Coalition, Africa Town, formerly known as Lamert Park here in South LA, to come on and speak to some very crucial issues surrounding this. And I can't really get to y'all now, but I see y'all in the chat. Greetings to all of y'all in the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. Brother Billion, Brother Ron, thank you so much for being on Rootwork today. Ron, I want to start with you. If you can give us an update on what's happening in the streets, what happened over the weekend, what's happening today.
Thank you, sister, for having me on here. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity. This weekend, we saw an increase, a real big increase on the ICE raids, the attacks, the coordinated fascist attacks against our community, to kidnap members of our community, people who we identify as indigenous to this land, indigenous to this continent. And so when people started going out to the protest, we immediately were greeted with tear gas, with flashbang grenades, with all kinds of, repressive weapons to squash the rebellion that hadn't even started yet. It really wasn't a rebellion. It was just a protest. But when the people saw that, they became enraged. And so we went out to Home Depot, in front of Home Depot in Paramount. It's right next to Compton. And when I got there, it looked like Gaza in the 90s. You saw young people. I'm a high school teacher, so I know high school students when I see them. There was these youngsters covering their faces, grabbing whatever they could and just throwing it at the Border Patrol. That's what was there. It wasn't ICE. It was the Border Patrol. And so it was an intense battle. It was over 8.5 hours of battle back and forth. And I know there was blood on both sides. I know there was blood on both sides because they caught hell from the community. And after 8.5 hours, the 100 to 200 agents that were there, who were surrounding hundreds of workers who were in these factories, they had to retreat. The LA County sheriffs and the Border Patrol, they ran out of ammo pretty much. So they had to retreat. And after 8.5 hours, those workers were liberated and they were able to get out of those factories. They ran to their cars and they went home to their loved ones. So that was a victory for the people. And it showed that when the community unites, when the people are together, we can defend ourselves from the state. And I want to say when the protest, when it started off in Paramount, but later in the evening, it ended up on the Compton side of the river. There we did see Black and brown folks coming out together to fight. And it was a beautiful thing to see. And after a while, the sheriff said, okay, well, we can't squash this. And so they had to retreat and the people were victorious. And that was just one small battle of like the video that you just showed. The history of LA is so rich in struggle and so rich in resistance. And I think today it's our time to do that. You're muted, sister.
It wouldn't be a root work if I didn't mess up technically. 2,000 National Guard troops sent here, 500 to 700 Marines either here or on their way. We saw with news footage the Black Hawk helicopter, I believe it was in Paramount, bringing in more munitions, more bullets, more whatever it was, just all kinds of stuff to reinforce their troops. So this is heavily militarized presence, but the news reports are claiming that this militarized presence is to protect federal buildings, not necessarily to be unleashed on the people. That would be more of, I guess, LAPD's work. I believe is it LAPD who shot an Australian reporter with a rubber bullet and one of the protesters in the head? Is that what happened in downtown LA?
Yeah, there was LAPD in Compton and Paramount. It was the sheriffs.
Yeah, local militarized presence. So what are the plans for this evening or the coming days, if you can speak on that?
There's protests happening right now. It's been happening in downtown all day. Right now, a lot of people just got off of work, got out of school. And so there's spontaneous protests happening all over the place. I do want to inform you that today was probably the hardest day that we've been hit. There's been at least 15 to 20 raids throughout Southern California, or I should say the LA area. And so a lot of people have been kidnapped today. And we say kidnap because that's the most appropriate term that we can use. The state uses brutal violence to separate us from our families, at our work sites, from our homes, etc., to impose their will against us. And so that is a kidnapping. It's a legal kidnapping that's done by them. But that's why we have every right. We have the obligation to fight back to defend our loved ones. And so because of that, the resistance must continue. As soon as this interview is over, I'm heading out to the street because we're going to continue the resistance. This is not going to end. This is a resistance of 500 plus years. And so we have to continue because I really want to say this today. They know that LA is the heart of the Mexican, of the Central American, of the Latin American community. So they feel that they have to make an example out of us. If they can break LA, they can break us anywhere in the country. So for us, we can't afford to fail. We have to win this battle because the well-being of our families depends on it. And with that comes a whole lot of other people. And we don't call ourselves immigrants. We call ourselves migrants because we're indigenous to this land. But immigrants, folks from Africa, from Europe, from Asia, etc., they have every right to be here as well. And we'll stand shoulder to shoulder with them too, because they're under attack right now. And so this is something that we can't win this on our own. We need to unite as working class people, all working class people, and understand this is an attack on workers. This is an attack on workers, not criminals. Because when you look at all these raids, they're hitting up Home Depots, they're hitting up construction sites, they're hitting up factories. Those aren't criminals, those are workers. And so, I think the solidarity part is important, but I think we're going to talk to that in a bit.
So, Brother Billion, before I bring you on, if you don't mind, I would like to play one of the videos from your Instagram account that you posted the other day. And I would also like to read a statement from Community Movement Builders, Los Angeles. Community Movement Builders is an organization, one of the founders of which founded this channel, Black Liberation Media. It's also an organization that I'm a part of. So if that's cool with you, I want to start with this video from your page, read this solidarity statement, and then bring you in, if that's okay.
All right.
Okay.
Black people go home. Hey, family. Black folks go home. Black folks go home. This is not our business. This is not our business. Black people go home. Go to hell. Go home.
I thought it might be a little bit longer than that. But let me read this statement real quick. This is coming from Community Movement Builders, Los Angeles. We fully recognize that the forces that maintain our oppression are the same forces that oppress other marginalized groups. We stand in solidarity with all oppressed peoples. That's one of Community Movement Builders' core principles. Community Movement Builders, Los Angeles, stands in solidarity with all our family members, friends, neighbors, allies, and strangers, documented and undocumented, in their fight for their human rights and dignity. What we don't want, we condemn the heinous and heartless moves of the Trump administration in arresting and deporting individuals who are here in this country as a result of the United States' decades-long foreign policy that intentionally destabilizes the economy of the global South. These individuals have had their families torn apart by a state that is criminal in nature and rooted in white supremacy. We condemn the Trump administration's decision to now deploy members of the National Guard and now Marines to Los Angeles in a show of force against immigrant communities, oppressed communities, Black communities, and against those resisting the illegal and immoral acts of the federal government. We condemn the stockpiling of military weaponry and ammunition in response to the human and constitutional right to protest the policies of this government. This country has a history of murdering and imprisoning organizers and radicals who stand up against this empire. The best way to ensure peace and safety in our communities is to remove Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and the National Guard and the Marines from our communities, and to allow due process for migrants, documented or not, who have lived and worked in our communities for years. The state that oppresses communities of color and migrants and that has stolen this land from the indigenous people is in no position to judge who should be allowed to stay here or not. We call for a people's tribunal so the people can decide how fast we should deport most members of the federal government back to Europe. We call for the immediate withdrawal of all federal law enforcement agencies in Los Angeles who have been deployed and deputized to terrorize our communities in search of undocumented migrants. We call for the immediate release of both those persons held in detention due to immigration bureaucracy and those who have protested against this administration's immigration policies. We call for the full recognition of the human rights of all people, regardless of their citizenship status, in accordance with all international human rights agreements. What we do want, Community Movement Builders Los Angeles knows all too well that the military actions currently being deployed against our immigrant community members, which includes our Black immigrant siblings, will also be deployed against Black communities in the future as we continue to agitate for our human rights, just as they have been deployed against us in the past. And finally, Community Movement Builders Los Angeles also knows that the anti-blackness exhibited by many members of the Latino community is far, far outweighed by our history of shared oppression, struggle, friendship, kinship, solidarity, and mutual aid. And we are proud to be a part of this tradition. We stand with you all. So, Brother Billion, I was saying in the beginning, it is my job to give voice to that which is on my people's heart, that which is resonating with my people. A lot of Black folks in LA are in support, even though we might not be on the front line. I know I'm not out there. I got arthritis and I don't like pain. I ain't getting beat up. But are in support and their solidarity of Latino people and their struggle, and see it as part of our struggle. But it's as a lot more Black folks like, we tired, we sitting this out. Not only are we tired and sitting this out, this is not our fight. And as I said, that video that I played, you posted that the other day. I wanted to get your analysis of why that is.
All right, greetings to both you and Brother Ron Gochez. Yeah, so I am the co-founder of the African Child Coalition, and we are based in what a lot of folks know as Leimert Park in South Central. And we work with many of our people throughout our communities here in Los Angeles, across the nation, and even now internationally. And quite often, you know, when these things happen, one of the things that hurts the Black community is because we don't get this type of support when we have a homeless rate of 7 people dying daily. You know, a year and a half ago, a young baby died, and we didn't hear anybody, you know, give the type of hype or energy that we've seen given from October 7th till now. And this is right here in Los Angeles, where Black people are dying on the sidewalks. And what we have seen a rise in this new millennium is that it's no longer white faces that are executing this against the Black community. We're seeing now that same Rainbow Coalition that Fred Hampton spoke about and wanted to see happen to bring all oppressed people together to liberate us. We're now seeing that Rainbow Coalition being the new colonizers of our communities. And we're not getting statements from other organizations, you know, speaking out, denouncing none of this. I think all three of us sitting right here know what happened to Malcolm X's grandson in 2013. And from that period forward, we have seen too many incidences to where
Well, hold on.
we really began to question solidarity.
You said the three of us sitting up here. What about our audience? What happened to Malcolm X's grandson in 2013?
Thank you. In 2013, Malcolm Shabazz, many of us refer to as Little Malcolm, the grandson of the great Ilhaj Malik Shabazz, known to many as Malcolm X. His grandson had put out a statement in 2013 that he and his family were beginning to be hunted and terrorized by both, I believe, local agents in New York and federal agents, to where he was going out to dinner with his mom, being pulled over. He was getting stopped at airports, you know. And in his statement, he said quite often, this is done to begin to justify assassinating a person. And probably less than 2 months after he put that statement out on May 9th of 2013, young Malcolm had met an individual in Oakland, and for whatever reason, that individual had talked young Malcolm into going to Tijuana. And the story we were told was that in Tijuana, he and this individual ran up a bar tab of, I believe, $1,200. And as a result, young Malcolm was beat to death. And the individual, the Mexican individual who took him to Tijuana, we were told fled, supposedly, when this happened. And we haven't heard too many people really, other than ourselves, try to look into, speak about, and call for justice of what happened there. But as I was saying, since that time moving forward, we have, you know, the Black population in LA is down to 8% right now. And what we heard about, a year and a half ago with those tapes that came out from LA City Council, is that we have members of the brown community who are intentionally playing a role in this. And we're not seeing a whole lot of pushback. Just like we're not seeing on the streets as we hear these campaigns of nigger killers. When we look on construction sites, up and down Crenshaw, no Black people. Well, excuse me, maybe overnight to work security for minimum wage, to sit out there and freeze to death to fight your own people from getting on these other people's properties. So just saying all this to say, it's gotten to a point to where, yes, solidarity and being unified against the so-called bigger oppressor sounds great, but what we're starting to see is the same thing that Haitians saw. They weren't just fighting the French, they were also fighting the British, they were fighting the Spanish, and they were fighting mulattoes to attain their liberation. So where we would love to be in solidarity with all oppressed people to fight, because yes, we know next week ICE could be looking at us. And we also want to be clear that what we are seeing happening ain't stopped happening to us. And again, there's been no statements, even within Black organizations and movements and all of this, for everything that's happening right now. A lot of these same Black folks who we see running out there ain't been pushing to help their own people. So how folks feel or gotta say about those of us who are saying no right now, we're gonna focus on Black people, we're gonna focus on reparations, we're gonna focus on saving the Black nation first and foremost, doesn't mean we're against the Latino community. You know, I got several loved ones, Mexican or Salvadorian, and of different races and nationalities, but as people as a whole, we're seeing hostilities, tensions, and takeovers from pretty much everybody that we were told was supposed to be part of that Rainbow Coalition. And even within movements, we're not seeing pushback against that. So however people want to feel, however people want to cast us, but we know in the future, when Black people as a whole look back in this moment, we will be on the correct side, because we're not going to keep acting like everybody ain't having a hand in the destruction of us right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ron, before you came on, we were in the back, and just really briefly, we talked about the fact that in these ICE raids of quote unquote undocumented folk, Belizeans, Jamaicans, Haitians, and I've heard of Somali folks are also being kidnapped, taken away from their families here in Los Angeles. And I've heard that in other areas across the country. Listening to what Billion just said, what are your thoughts?
Billion isn't lying. Billion is speaking no lies. And I think anyone that's truthful and has real analysis about what's happening on the ground and in the bigger picture will know that what he's saying is true. I think that I don't disagree with, like, when Billion says that, you know, to put Black people and African people first is like your priority. I think that's righteous. I think that's absolutely righteous. And I think for us, we do the same for our community. But we do also see that part of our liberation, a part of that is the solidarity with other people. I think, you know, are all Mexicans and all brown people in solidarity with Black people? Hell no. Remember, we've been colonized for over 500 years as well. So a lot of our folks are running around, dyeing their hair blonde, getting blue freaking contacts in their eyes. It's that colonized mind. They're just as reactionary as I mean, we saw how many Black and brown men voted for Trump. So, I mean, of course, there's that reactionary part of our community. All communities are going to have that. So, of course, those are the people who do the really stupid things, say those stupid things that are really obviously anti-Black and anti themselves. You know, we know that that's the same in both of our communities. I always tell my students, like, look, who kills the most Black people? Black people. Who kills the most brown people? Brown people. We suffer from the same condition. And so I think when we look at people who are, you know, who have a little bit more consciousness, that's a little bit different. That's, of course, you're going to see Black folks being in solidarity with brown folks and vice versa. You know, here in LA, we're obviously like Latinos are like the mass majority of the population. When we went to like the, you know, George Floyd actions, when you went to BLM actions, a huge part of the group there was brown people, because we understood that the same dog that bit you bit us. We understand that clearly, historically and currently. And so when it comes to the current immigration issue, you know, the statistics show the people who get deported the fastest of the immigrants who get detained by ICE are Africans. Black people are the ones who get deported the fastest. We're talking about Haitians. We're talking about people from the continent. We're talking about whoever, any Black immigrant from Honduras, from Jamaica, etc. And so when you look up these immigration detention centers, is filled like prisons with Black and brown people. And so I don't think at this point it's I don't think that's a question. I think we both understand that. And I think Billion is right. We have a lot of work to do when it comes to, and when something happens to the Black community that brown folks do, we should denounce it. We should call it out. And I can say from my organization, we have been doing that, but obviously we don't represent the entire movement, and, you know, and vice versa. For us, we do believe not in Black and brown solidarity in words, but in actions. Our sister organization is the African People's Socialist Party. Y'all probably are familiar with Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Y'all know they were under attack by the FBI. You know, we went out there to Florida. We go out there. We do real on the ground work with folks. And so we believe in Black and brown unity because we think in the big picture, you know, a victory for the African community is a victory for us. And we think it goes both ways. And so it's not just like this nice talk, but we think on the ground, it's real. And there's a history. I remember, Billion, I remember seeing you when those Minutemen came to Africa Town. I think back then it was still maybe called Leimert Park. I remember when they came, they tried to get Black folks to turn against, you know, the Mexican or Latino community, and it backfired, and the community kicked them out. And if it wasn't for the LAPD, they would have gotten their asses kicked that day. But I think that that's the type of solidarity that leaders like you, like groups like us, we have to set the example. And so, no, I don't think you should spend half your time, of most of your time, doing solidarity work for us. No, I don't think so. But I think that we should educate our communities on why we should be in solidarity, in a real solidarity. And so, I tell my students that, I think y'all know I'm a teacher. I tell them, when you hear your uncle at the party say that stuff about Black people, check them. Say something, because if you don't say something, then your little cousins, your little brothers, your little sisters are going to hear that, and that's going to continue. And so, if we do our part in our neighborhoods to check that, that'll go a long way, man.
And I hear and I understand that. And what I'm saying is that I don't get Black people having issues with other people just simply because of race. Quite often it's something related to what has happened. We have an elder sister. 3 different times she was robbed. She's homeless, living out her car. 3 different times she was robbed. 3 different Latino individuals. All 3 times Latino police show up. They let him go. She got arrested. And it's not something you can really try to override past solidarity with what people are experiencing in the moment. So I know I'm not in a position of being irresponsible by not trying to push solidarity further. I think if there is true solidarity, that needs to start manifesting and stopping this cleansing of LA of Black people. And it doesn't just start, because now ICE has shown up. We're dealing with this daily with the LAPD, the sheriffs, these housing agencies where they're not housing Black people, but instead they're housing people newly arrived to the country. Turn on the radio, every day you're hearing Black music, but you're hearing non-Black personalities too often speaking negatively or just playing the images of Black people they want to portray and put out there. I mean, it's just so many levels to what's happening that I hear what you're saying and attempting to get people to check prejudices, but people are being gravely affected by systemic practices. And again, there's no longer white faces in these places. So, and again, it's not I and most of the people who I'm working with or have talked to or against any other people. But right now, we have to identify that for the most part, we're being not just left out here alone, we're being challenged by all these people in other communities, and we're doing that by ourselves. It's not just about what was protested in 2020 and all these other, things, but in the moment right now, like when I walk out here today and we get back in traffic, if you can understand the hostilities that we're dealing with, there's no way folks in our community are about to try to go fight ICE so we can come back home and have to deal with that.
I'm speaking with Brother Billion GodSun of the Africatown Coalition, Brother Ron Gochez of Union del Barrio. We are talking about not only what's happening in LA regarding the ICE raids of migrants, immigrants, the deployment of National Guard and Marines, the militarized response to this. We're also talking about anti-blackness and the feeling, the sentiment among many Black folks, specifically here in LA, that we should not be on the front lines out in these demonstrations against ICE because they are seen as being predominantly Latino, and that we have not felt enough love from the Latino community. Real quick, I just want to say that Brother Billion, I've known for several years. He's my brother and comrade. We've had some rough patches, but he is my brother and my comrade. And if you are here watching this show in support of him, that's fine. But if you come in this chat talking some FBA ADOS bullshit, you will be put out, because we do not do that on Black Liberation Media. We believe we are all an African people. I know I believe that. and my trigger fingers stay ready. But be that as it may, I see people complaining about the chat. Yeah, we're not doing all that over there. So, Ron, in a nutshell, we need to see more love. Billion is saying, Black folk, we need to see more love. Not just in statements would be nice. Statements condemning the attacks on Black people, but we also need to see you on the front lines with us, or need to see more of you on the front lines with us. We need to see some tangible solidarity. I know I find it, I won't say strangely odd, but it just, every time I see, for example, even in Leimert Park, whenever, if something goes down and there's a heavy police presence in Leimert Park, I see nothing but white and Latino police officers, maybe one Asian. Will Black police officers make it better? No, but you have to admit it's jarring to see so many white and Latino police officers surrounding Black people. You know, back in the 1940s, I believe it was the 40s, when they first allowed Blacks on the police force in Los Angeles. Of course, we couldn't arrest white people. But the point being is that we were hoping that we would get some representation in this institution that would not treat us as less than human, that would not beat us into oblivion. And of course, because of colonization, because of anti-Blackness, white supremacy, we end up going into these institutions not to advocate for our communities, but to prove to white folks that we're okay, that we can be trusted. So no, having Black police officers does not work for us. You got the example of Atlanta, Georgia, Black police chief, Black police force, Black mayor, Black city council, leading the way with the establishment of Cop City. And yet, and still, it is still jarring. When you look at Los Angeles, you see how many Black people are being pushed out either because they cannot afford it or because they just tired, or let's keep it real, the language barrier. Latinos are represented in every area, but they don't always speak English. They don't always speak English, so they cannot communicate with us. And we know that they've been put on by other Latinos to the detriment, many of us feel, in our communities because we're not getting no jobs. Crenshaw Boulevard runs through the heart of the Black community. We advocate for rail service, but we can't be hired to help build this service. We got some feelings that we need to talk about. These feelings represent tangible issues. Understanding your history and the history of Union del Barrio, working with the African People's Socialist Party, what can you tell us in terms of an organizational, institutional response? What can we look forward to from you all?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up important points, and I just think that we have to be able to not be led by the sellouts of our community. Because Billion brought up before the point of these council members who got busted, who got caught speaking, basically saying that they were plotting against the Black community to take away power from the Black community. But what we have to know and clearly understand is they weren't taking Black power away so that they can give it to brown people. They were taking that power away to give it to themselves. And that's very, very different, because we don't benefit from that. They're just sellouts. They're absolute sellouts. And so when we talk about, Black folks not getting jobs for Metro, et cetera, we don't have the power to decide that. We know who has the power. It's the same people that pits us against each other so that we can have these divisions. And so if there are Black or brown people who are in these decision-making positions, we know how they got there. They can't have our politic and get there. Absolutely not. And so when we see street vendors getting beat up by Black folks and stuff like that, I can't judge the Black community by the actions of a few people. I know that the majority of the people are righteous people. And I just think if we keep that in mind both ways, we'll be in a much better position. But what can we do besides putting statements, stuff like that? I think it goes beyond that. I think we've done more than that. I mean, when Africans get killed by the police all the time, like I said, when the stuff during the pandemic, the George Floyd actions and all that, you also saw masses of brown folks out there. We were out there. That's undeniable, because we understand that what happened to the Black community was messed up, because it happens to us too. And so, I think that if we want to build a closer relationship, working together, and if you want to see more solidarity, then let's be intentional. Invite us. We're here. We're here in the hood too. I grew up on Crenshaw and Adams. That's the neighborhood I grew up in. And so I've seen the push out of the Black folks. And I've also seen the push out of my folks. Where my mom lives now, still in that neighborhood, it's a lot of Asian folks, white folks. Like, it doesn't look like the neighborhood that I grew up in. And so I understand that. That's why I know Billy ain't lying. And so let's be more intentional, inviting each other to each other's stuff and working together. So it's not just kind of like a symbolic solidarity, but a real, like, in action. All right, you're having a meeting, you're having an event. All right, let us show up. Let us pull up and back you up. We can commit to that. And I think that's important, because I see it. I talk about this with my colleagues. I'm a man, like, I teach in South Central. Our school is like 93% Latino. And just this year alone, like 5 of my Black students have just disappeared from my classroom for different reasons. And I feel it, I see it. And I wish I had the answer to it, but I think if we work together, we can address some of these issues.
So it's a lot going on in the chat, but one of the things I keep saying is, quote unquote, Mexicans or Latinos don't support reparations for Black people. Now, Ron can speak for himself, but I'm going to say that the organization that he considers to be his sister organization, the African People's Socialist Party, has been pushing for reparations from their inception. I doubt very seriously that Union del Barrio would work with the APSP or consider them a sister organization if they also did not support reparations for African people. So let's dead that right there. There are some Latino people who do not support reparations. There are some who do. There are some Latino people who exhibit anti-blackness toward Black people, and there are some who don't. I think what Billion is saying, what I am trying to give voice to, is that a lot of us feel it's too many Latinos exhibiting anti-blackness, and we need to do something about it. Now, like I said, Ron can speak for himself. I shouldn't speak for him. Billion, you can speak for yourself too. Is that fair to say that I encapsulated that correctly?
First, I just want to start by saluting Ron and, suggesting stronger efforts of working together. Our organization is not really meeting or event-based, but day-to-day, hands-on between security and especially with this housing crisis, so we can look at possible ways of moving forward in those efforts. But yeah, as many of our people have been extracted or displaced from our community, we're seeing many more people, especially Latinos, but like Ron also said, Asians, whites, who are coming into our community, Arabs, and we're experiencing hostilities from all the above. I think over the past year or so, we've seen in a lot of schools where Black students are being targeted, whether it be Persians or white parents or a number of different things on the workplace. A lot of folks, like I was saying earlier, are either being fired or leaving their jobs because of these issues. And at this point, it's just a real, from where we're at, a real dark outlook. Like I was saying, our percentages went down to 8%, not showing signs of growth. Again, as we are experiencing all of these attacks, and it's just really digging and finding ways to move forward. Like I was saying, by no means do we support the federal authorities. We believe they are the primary ones who need to be held accountable. If anything, they need to be getting arrested and detained and put on trial. But right now, from a position of immediate survival, yes, for us, the LAPD, the sheriffs, housing, these officials are our primary, I guess you could say, opponents. But just in general, people are coming into our communities with just too many hostilities.
Okay. Now, Ron, I know you said you had to leave about 4:40. It's 4:47. And the work that you need to do, get back out there in the streets. I don't want to be the reason why you late for that or miss that. Do you have any parting words?
No, sister, I just want to say thank you. And thank you, Billion, for sharing your piece too. Like I said, you ain't lying. I just think that when we come down and we put our brains together and bring some analysis, when we look at it from a working class perspective and how we know historically the system, the man has pitted us against each other, we got to figure it out because our communities can't afford for us not to figure it out. Anytime we spend any energy we spend fighting each other, we know who wins, and it ain't us. And so, no, I appreciate this discussion. I think that these are the honest discussions we need to have more of. And so, I thought it was important to take the time to do this. And so, thank you. And if there's more in the future, let us know. If we can do this in a bigger setting with more folks, that would be good. I know Billion has been doing the work for a long time. So have I. But there's a lot of other people, and we should have more voices and see what people have to say. And we got to see what the reactionaries have to say, because we got to check them, because they're trying everything they can to pit us against each other. And neither one of us win when we do that. So, thank you all.
So for folks who want more information on Union del Barrio and the work that you do, how can they get that info?
They can hit us up on Instagram or Facebook. It's at Unión del Barrio. And so look us up. And let's work together, because it's we have a rich history working together, and we commit to continue to do that work here in LA and anywhere else, because we know what's happening. We know what's happening to the Black community. We fully understand that. So it is our responsibility to join that struggle, to join that fight. And just for the record, before I leave, we absolutely support reparations 100%. I remember when I first moved back to LA after college, I remember seeing Mr. Peoples and stopping by the truck and talking to him. I always supported reparations. It's the right thing to do. African people were, slaughtered, enslaved, and today the conditions that African people live in are a direct consequence of that. So absolutely, this government owes the African people everything. And man, I can never do the math to see how much money they owe the African people. So y'all have our full support on that.
All right. Thanks so much. You take care.
Ron.
Stay safe.
Take care. Be safe.
So Billion, Africa Town Coalition, folks want to keep up with the work that you all are doing to address some of these dire conditions facing Black folks in LA, in Africa Town, also formerly known as the Leimert Park area. That's an area of LA we call the intersection of Black wealth and Black poverty. A lot of folks know about the Black wealth part, but they don't really know what's happening on the ground in Leimert. But you are on the ground there every day. So let folks know how they can be in touch with you and the work that you all are doing.
Yes, so on social media, you can find us on Instagram, Africa Town Coalition with an underscore at the end. On Facebook, we have a Africa Town group. And also on YouTube, we have an Africa Town Coalition page. But more importantly, we always encourage people who are in LA or the surrounding area to come out and join us in Africa Town, especially on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. We have a open air African market with a number of custom made clothing, foods, jewelry, folks from around the diaspora. That's one of the things I was going to point out earlier when Ron was saying the number one group who is targeted are those of African descent, who we don't refer to as immigrants. We refer to them as our family. And we embrace folks from everywhere here. We got folks from Senegal, Belize, Haiti, Jamaica, Detroit, everywhere. And we, for the most part, operate and function as a family. Quite often, those who are coons, whether they be Black American coons, Nigerian coons, tend to not last too long out here. And we also acknowledge some of our primary folks who we're pushing back to stop gentrification are Black American coons. But beyond all the cooning, you will come to Africatown and have a great time, especially on Saturdays and Sundays. June 19th and June 22nd. In just a couple weeks, we'll be having our annual Juneteenth events. The one on Juneteenth, the 19th, will be organized by the merchants in the village here, along with the city. But the one on the 22nd will be more grassroots, as it's primarily organized by the vendors who have formed the African Village Vendors Association here in Africatown. So, we always want to see folks out here with us. Also, I want to raise up the reparations campaign we're on. We need everyone who hears this, especially you, if you're in California, to tap in with us, because we have a California Legislative Black Caucus who is blocking real reparations, but instead they're trying to present us with bills such as that they have one for college preferential admissions, but it comes with no type of compensation. They have SB 437, which is calling for more studies, and we know whenever they give anybody else, they don't have to study it, and we have more than likely been studied the longest. And they have 518, SB 518, where they're calling for a genealogy to be studied within the Cal State systems, but for those findings to be stored in the California State Department of Justice. So we're saying no to those bills, but instead we have AB 1315 we're attempting to push forward. So we need folks to tap in with us so you can know when to call, email, or show up and march with us to push that.
No more studies.
No more studies.
We don't need to
No
study
more research.
anymore. Yeah, no more studies. So one more time, how can folks find you all?
Africatown Coalition on Instagram, Africatown Coalition with an underscore, on YouTube, Africatown Coalition, and on Facebook, Africatown Group, or in person here in Africatown, Los Angeles, which a lot of folks still unfortunately refer to as Lemert Park.
Mm-hmm. That's Crenshaw, 43rd, Vernon, etc. Degnan.
Exactly.
Lemert Boulevard, Africatown Boulevard. All right, Brother Billion, thank you so much for being available and amenable at the last minute to come on. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Tiny, for all that you do. Thank you.
No problem. Holler at you later.
All right.
And all my folks, I didn't get to folks in the chat. Y'all was doing a lot over in the chat. I couldn't do all of that today. But I do I don't appreciate all of you. Let me stop lying. I appreciate most of y'all who was in the chat. I appreciate most of y'all who tuned in today. I wanted to talk about Harriet Tubman, but this took precedence. We'll deal with the Harriet Tubman show next week. Check out the ticker at the bottom of the page. Please support the work that Rootwork does. Support the work that Black Liberation Media does. Like, share, subscribe, share, like. Support the Cash App, support the Venmo, support the Patreon, because as you know, YouTube ain't got no love for us, but we need y'all to show us some love so we can continue to do this work. Again, thank you all for joining in. Please continue to support all of the wonderful programs here on Black Liberation Media. I think that's it for me this week. I'll see y'all next week talking about Harriet Tubman, unless something else comes up and I need to hop on here. Y'all stay safe. Peace.